and we are here on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is dreams and dreaming our world into being. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get settled in and present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing every single cell, every organ, bringing vital life force throughout your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any stress, any tension, negativity, fatigue. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying and energizing and illuminating your cells, your electrons, your molecules, and connecting you with the world beyond. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining fatigue, any tension, any toxicity, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tickling, feel the tingling, and the wonder of that sensation. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I didn't even know it was Women's Day. Good morning, Robert. Thank you for that. Um, so, welcome to everybody who's joining us, and it's the beginning of a new week. And why not start out this new week with talking about dreams? And not the sleeping dreams, the waking dreams that allow us to dream our future and our reality into being. And I'm wondering if what we often don't put attention toward really cultivating our dreams. And what if we did? Good morning, Suzanne. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about dreaming reality into being today, and actually putting some deliberate attention into our vision for the future and for ourselves and for the world. And what would it look like if we put deliberate attention on creating the world or imagining the world that we desire? And part of this imagination is is adding emotion. Emotion is the energy that powers our visualization. Robert, interesting that you talk about lucid dreams. What about lucid dreams? Because I've been more conscious and deliberate about cultivating lucid dreams in the recent times. Let's talk about that. And good morning, Sally. Wonderful to have you here. So, lucid dreams are dreams in which you're aware that you're dreaming and you're able to direct those dreams. And in many cases, you actually have the ability to travel in the astral plane to see things that are actually happening, to experience a liminal space, I would say, where you can be between between realities, where you could have a lucid dream and the things that happen are kind of supernatural in that they go beyond our natural capabilities in our waking state. And you can also travel, so it's an interesting place between between spaces. So, Robert, I'm interested to know what your experience is with lucid dreaming. Good morning, Irma. We're talking about dreaming reality into being, and now we're taking a little bit of a side trip into the idea of lucid dreaming, and wondering if any of you have experienced lucid dreams. Um, Dreams where you had awareness that you were in a dream or in an altered state or in an altered dimension. And I I think that if we're going to talk about lucid dreams, we also get to talk about precognitive dreams. You know, dreams where you have awareness of something before it happens. I think I've talked about this a long time ago, but my dad is no longer in the physical, but he had several really memorable, for me, lucid dreams that he described. One of them was a dream, or precognitive dreams is what I should say. He was a veterinarian, and one night he dreamt of this very, very elaborate surgery to take care of a collie that had been badly, badly injured. And the next day, the collie was brought in for his attention, and he was able to do that surgery. Sally says, I have, to the point it started setting itself up. Okay, so I have had lucid dreams to the point it started setting itself up before I went to bed one night. And I remember asking myself, tonight that you need to ask a question, something you've always wanted to know. So I did as I was falling asleep. I repeated the same question. Where did my soul get its start? Through my lucid dream, it showed me I was flying above the land. There was somebody flying above me. I could see the shadow, and I knew they were there. It started to show me sand in deserts, pyramids, sphinx. So from there on, I knew that my soul got its start in Egypt. Wow, Sally, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it. That's awesome. Really, really cool. So it was a lucid dream, and a dream that was a direct communication that you determined. Beautiful, beautiful. And Robert says, I've recently attended a webinar about how to control your lucid dreams. Didn't manage to control them yet. So let's, you know what? Let's change the focus here deliberately to lucid dreams and precognitive dreams and how to manage these dreams. I think this is such a fascinating topic. There was a TV show that I just watched on Netflix, and it was called Behind Her Eyes. And it was about, it incorporated an element of astral travel. Of course, it turned it nefarious in the long run, but it was actually quite interesting. And it was talking the people that were doing this astral traveling were doing it in their dream state, and they had suffered from night terrors. So they had this practice that allowed them to distinguish whether they were awake and whether they were sleeping. And so one of the practices during their wakeful time was to count all the fingers of their hands, to deliberately count each finger, and to look at a clock, to notice the time, to look back. And there was this whole little ritual. And when they were in a state that they weren't certain if it was waking or dreaming, they would count their fingers, and their fingers wouldn't necessarily be, there wouldn't necessarily be 5 fingers per hand. So they would know that they were dreaming, and then they were to look for a doorway. And when they found that doorway, when they stepped through, then they stepped into the dimension of lucid dreaming or astral travel, because they actually did get to travel astrally. So it was very interesting. I think there were some misrepresentations in the film, but still it was very interesting. So Robert says, long ago I had some dreams where I was basically every person in the dream. And one time I was Batman flying in the dream, but woke up before colliding with my pillow. That's awesome. Well, so dream analysts might say, some dream analysts say that we always are every character in our dream. And that everything in the dream is a representation of ourselves. So if we're driving in a car, the car is a representation of ourselves, and all the people are representations of ourselves. And certainly that's one way to be able to interpret our dreams, for sure. Robert says, something when I have a lucid dream, I remember it all day, and I'm able to continue that particular dream the next night. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. In fact, I remember something similar, Robert, and very vaguely, now that you're mentioning that, like having a dream and then going back to it. But I don't know that it was actually a lucid dream. Interesting, interesting. So, what characterizes a lucid dream as a lucid dream? Is it that we are alert to the fact that we're dreaming? Is it, oh, sometimes when I have a lucid dream? Got it, Robert. Thank you. Is it that we're aware of that we're dreaming? Good morning, Isabel. Wait, welcome, welcome. We're talking about dreams and lucid dreams, and also now peripherally dreaming our lives into being. I remember once I had a dream that is, and please, I'm encouraging you all to share your lucid dreams and your precognitive dreams and dreams that had a huge impact on you. I had a dream, and in that dream, I was being terrorized by this big kind of monster, form, and I was cowering and whimpering. And at one point in that moment, I realized, wait a second, I don't have to cower and whimper. And it was as if this portion of me it emerged that was a primal force of nature, and just sort of spiraled up, spun up like this uh, incredible power of, almost like the power of a tornado, and spun up and rose up and faced this thing that was terrorizing me, and said to it, don't you ever reappear again in my experience, in my world. Don't you ever imagine that you can dominate me in this way. And like it cowered before me, and it was an assumption of my power. It was like moving into and stepping into my power. But it was a moment in that dream where I made a deliberate and conscious choice. So I'm going to count that as a lucid dream. Robert says, yes, when the dream is interesting to me, I manage to remember it. And yes, we have to be able to be aware that we are in a dream. And so I wonder what happens if we wake up in this dream. What if we realize that we are in a dream in this dream? What then can we shift? This waking dream that we live in all the time collectively. So Sally says, as a small child, I used to have a recurring lucid dream, and it always showed me the same scene. I was a very young child. I was born in royalty. I lived in a castle. I would be running through the hallways in the castle all the way down to where the dungeon was. And I was trying to escape my nanny. And my nanny always wound up being my tia. So she was always there to take care of me. And I never made it to the end of the dream. So I didn't know how it was turning out. I am just remembering that. And that probably happened, oh my gosh, for like 3 years. Every time I would dream, it would be this dream. Wow, Sally, so that's an intense and powerful dream. And I wonder, as you recall it now, what might be available for you to be alert to in that dream? what was the message of that dream? Have you ever encountered that castle in your study of history? Have you ever seen a photograph of perhaps a child and a nanny that made you feel like you had a shock of recognition? I'm wondering how that may have played out in your life, having been such an important recurrent memory. And Robert says, that is how we can get rid of our fears, which reminds me of how I got rid of my fear of spiders through a dream. That would be amazing to share with us, Robert, how you got rid of your fear of spiders. Because if you were deliberate in the dream in getting rid of your fear around spiders, perhaps, then I guess we can characterize that as a lucid dream. Rosalind says, do our dreams highlight things to pay attention to if we can remember them? Right, if we can remember them. I haven't remembered my dreams very much recently, in recent years. I used to have a lot of dreams where I would fly. And so often that I really, truly, in my waking life, was not convinced that I couldn't fly because I flew so often. And interesting, I also had an astral travel or an out of body experience while I was awake and communicating with a friend. I was also experiencing traveling at high speed across fields and countrysides. It was really wild, and it was prolonged for multiple minutes. And I was telling my friend that I was going over these fields, and it was very low, and I could see the fronds of the grasses underneath me as I was flying by. And Robert said, so I dreamed that I was hearing strange noises coming from behind the door of my room when I was young. And as I looked behind the door, I saw a spider, small at the beginning and growing until it filled the room. I can't remember exactly what I did in the dream with the spider, but I know that I'm not afraid of spiders anymore. Well, that's wild, Robert. It sounds like you could end up being more scared of spiders from what you shared. But the critical part is the part that maybe you don't remember, but that had the impact. So congratulations for you not to be afraid of spiders anymore. Maybe it turned out to be a friend in the dream somehow. And Rosalind says, Charlie Morley teaches lucid dreaming and uses shadow work to confront our fears. Did you take that training with Charlie Morley, Rosalind? I'm wondering. And Robert says, I can relate to your astral travel, Mira. So thank you. I'm guessing you've had your own experiences. And, I think that we have an interesting crowd here in that a number of us have had other than common types of experiences. And that's what's drawn us to Enlightened World Network, no doubt, where we've had really interesting experiences that traditional wisdom doesn't necessarily explain. I remember having an astral attacks for a period of time at one time. And that's when I finally had that dream where I was being attacked by this monster. And I said, that's it, that's the end of it. And I haven't had those attacks since. But for a while, I was waking up with bruises. I even woke up with a bite mark once. It was really, really creepy and bizarre to have these things that were going on while I was sleeping that I didn't have recollection of. But there were lots of battles going on while I was sleeping, no doubt. Rosalind says, replying to Sally, unconscious become conscious in a dream. So what did Sally say? Sally said, No, not at all. But I do remember that I was a loner in the dream and also a loner in my younger days. And so Rosalind says, unconscious become conscious in a dream. Do you mean to say that dreams don't always have an underlying meaning? Let's see. I think, do our dreams highlight things to pay attention to? If we can remember them. I think our dreams have all different functions. I think that we look to resolve things through our dreams. Often our other than conscious mind is trying to work things through and understand things and make sense of things and solve problems and process events and interactions and traumas also sometimes. And sometimes they're precognitive, meaning they're telling us of things that are going to happen. And sometimes they are lucid, in which we get to actively, consciously direct and participate in the dreams. So Sally says, oh no, I do believe they all represent a message. We just have to figure them out. Yeah, so that's the challenge, is figuring out our dreams and what they mean. I remember one dream I had years ago. I was in some kind of I'm not thinking of the word. I want to say cavalcade, a whole transport of people and like a caravan of people and vehicles, and moving through this caravan. There were people along the side of the road, and they were bandaged and wounded, and driving through this long road filled with people on either side of the road. And I don't remember if I was wounded or not wounded, but I was moving through somehow on this caravan of all this devastation all around. And I remember waking really, really disturbed by it. It was years and years and years ago, and I don't know what the meaning of it was. I don't know if it was sorting through shame that I had around, people that I thought I may have hurt, or if it was something bigger. It was a really vivid dream that has stuck with me, I guess, for years and years and years. So Isabel says, as a young child, I used to have this dream of different faces of people, one by one, coming to me. And as getting closer, getting bigger, it used to scare me badly. So interesting. Are those faces, I wonder, Isabel, of anyone you recognize or you remember? Sally says, I remember having a precognitive dream about my baby sister back in 1967. I can remember this lucid dream. It showed me her having a seizure, then putting her on the floor as a baby. And I remember the paramedics coming in and putting all these discs, these sticker discs on her head and marking her head with red and blue lines. 50 years later, over 50 years actually, my brother brought it to my attention that in 1967, they didn't have a portable EKG machine right there. And that sold me on lucid dreams and precognitive dreams. In and all of them are very important to us. That's amazing. That's really interesting, Sally. Wow. And to have the recollection of a dream that was so vivid 50 years ago, that's remarkable. And by the way, my sister was born with seizures and now has heart issues from it, but there was no EKG machine at that time, no portable EKG. Wow. And Isabel says, no, I didn't recognize any of those faces. And Robert says, yes, my first astral, we hit on a good topic today, didn't we? My first astral travel experience was with an old friend, ex-best friend, which was also a wizard. I was in a small and friendly Turkish restaurant with my wizard friend, and I experienced a few moments of astral travel, which seemed like minutes in real world. I had a girlfriend who was suffering, so I wanted to see what she was doing. So as I was physically in the restaurant with my friend, my spirit traveled to my girlfriend's house, directly in her room, and I could see her laying on the bed crying. When I returned to the physical, I wanted to confirm what I saw spiritually, so I called her, and she confirmed everything. I was literally burning when I returned. Wow. And Isabel says, but wake up from it. And I'm not sure. Obviously that's relating to a dream, waking up from the dream. And Rosalind says, I've not taken a course on shadow work using Charlie Morley, lucid dreaming and shadow. I only have one book of his that covers techniques on how to become lucid. Well, you might share it with us. One of the things I'm noticing is that I can move into a dream state where I'm able to stay somewhat aware by putting my attention on my breath. When I breathe really, really deeply, what I've noticed is that after a time, sometimes, rarely still, I haven't mastered it yet, but sometimes I hear myself snore. So there's part of me that's still awake while my body is definitely asleep. And I haven't been able to capitalize on that yet. So Rosalind says, yes, I took the class with him, and that's with Charlie Morley. Pretty cool. And Rosalind says, one technique is to wake up 1 hour before your normal wake up time. And I guess catch yourself dreaming. And Robert says that was the webinar I was talking about, the one with Charlie Morley. Very cool. So I think one of the ways also to get into a lucid altered state is, it may be considered lucid dreaming. It may be considered just self-hypnosis, but we can hypnotize ourselves, or we can get into this altered state of awareness where we can direct ourselves into activities if we don't fall asleep. So one of the ways to do that is using your breath. Another way to do that is by counting back from 100 slowly, and using your breath and intermittently telling yourself to just go deeper and maintain awareness, deeper and more alert, deeper and clearer in thought, for instance. And what happens is that our body goes into a state, like a sleeping state, and our awareness then can still remain active and alert. So it's interesting because this is something that over the past week even has been a conscious venture for myself. And it's interesting that that's what seems to be on a lot of people's minds. And I wonder, in the astral state, I wonder how we might be able to direct our intention in this altered state toward shifting the dynamics of experience, shifting toward creating benefit for the world, to creating peace for instance. Anyway, so Rosalind was saying, one technique is to wake up before your normal wake up time and then fall back asleep, because that's when the REM is most active. And Robert says, kind of like the theta state of mind. Yes. So moving into an altered state where we have relaxed our physical bodies, our physical responses, and then our minds can be freer. Years ago, I spent some time at the Monroe Institute, Robert Monroe Institute, and I think it's in Virginia. And we were taking training on how to access these altered states of consciousness. And Robert Monroe is the guy who pioneered binaural beats for accessing altered states. And I remember at one point coming out of my body, imagining coming out of my body and trying, like finding myself on the underside of a floorboard to try and be moving through the floor. And there were other times where I was encountering a wall and trying to move through the wall. And at one point, feeling the sensations of molecules and whatever interacting with the wall or the floor itself, and just like this commingling of consciousness moving through this thing. And interesting, especially in light of what we were talking about last week about being in this sea of energy that's like a constant web. It's interesting that you have a different experience of moving through the molecules of a floor. But anyway, very interesting talk today, guys. Thank you so much for such fun engagement and for sharing your experiences. Yeah, we get to look at what is the nature of consciousness, really, when we can have all these wild experiences that are from an other than common conscious state. So thank you. And thank you always for this wonderful opportunity to be hanging with you guys and enjoying this time together. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And I invite you to check out the community on Enlightened World Network and all the great programming. And again, thank you for such a rousing conversation today. I so appreciate it and appreciate you. So until next time, enjoy, and let's dream the world that we dream of into being.